Welcome back for another episode of the Better Than I Found It podcast. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor. Today's podcast is a bit of a departure from the norm. Anybody who's known me for a long time understands that I fancy myself a bit of a golf historian. Some would say a golf nerd, but I'm okay with that. Heck, I accept the moniker. I've earned it. Now to set the scene, my assistant Mikkel recently came upon a copy of an article I wrote way back in 1987. I had a junior golf column in a local newspaper, the Edmond Evening Sun, where I had made some pretty bold claims. Bold claims about 10 golf records I felt would never be broken. Now today, Mikkel calls me on the carpet on that article, referring to my article claim by claim. I guess you could call it a day of reckoning. Needless to say, it's a bit humbling. I hope you enjoy.
Today's podcast is a bit of a nerdy one. We definitely have one big nerd in the room, and that's Coach McGraw. Good morning, Coach.
Mikkel, I appreciate you calling me nerd this morning, but I am one as far as golf history.
Yeah, I'm a nerd too, but I think you got me beat on this one. The reason for today's podcast is, I was just snooping around your office here the other day, and I found a certain article. In the middle of the article was a face that was a little bit, it's recognizable, but it's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And next to it says Mike McGraw. And so it looks like you've written a golf article here from 1987. Is that correct?
Right. I wrote a junior golf column in Edmond, Oklahoma for the Edmond Evening Sun for 15 years. 15 years I wrote that. So you got one about 5 years into it.
Yeah. And so I obviously dove down into it, and I thought it was a pretty interesting article and thought, hey, why don't we make a podcast out of this? Because you are a golf nerd, a golf historian, kind of a stats nerd on results, especially in major championships. So we're going to go through this article where you made some bold claims back in 1987, kind of go through each of these 10 claims that you made. And then at the end, we're going to do a speed round to see if I can stomp you on some golf trivia. So title of this article, Wednesday, July 8th, 1987. It was published in Edmond Evening Sun. It's called There Are Some Golf Records That Will Stand. Golf columnist Mike McGraw. So let me just get into this, Coach.
You got it.
Okay, you start off writing. In every sport, there are various records that seem to be unbreakable, but somehow someone always breaks them eventually. I've chosen 10 records in golf that make my all-untouchable team. And in my opinion, these will forever remain peerless in the world of golf.
Gosh.
So, pretty bold claim to make how many years ago?
It was 35 years ago. Hey, listen, I was young and dumb, okay? I thought I knew what I knew.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this list is pretty good, but I made some mistakes.
You were pretty much my age at this point. Mm-hmm. So, some bold claims, I like it. I mean, it's good journalism. You kind of...
Thank you.
You tied the listener in here early. Okay, so let's just jump into it and see what you have to say about it. So, first claim is number 1. Mm-hmm. Byron Nelson's 11 victories in a row. Forget it. No one will ever touch this one. There is simply too much competition on the tour today. During the 1945 season, Nelson did not lose a tournament from March 11th through August 4th. Wow. Only one man, Jackie Burke, 1956, was able to win 4 in a row, and the last man to win 3 in a row was Gary Player in 1978, when he won the Masters, Tournament of Champions, and the Houston Open in consecutive weeks. That's a pretty good stat.
It's a great stat. I'm going to stand by this one. I truly don't believe that this one will be broken. And 11 in a row. Tiger did 7 and 6. I mean, Tiger did some amazing things, but even he wasn't able to get to 11. And I think as we go through, some of these stats sort of have an asterisk beside them because they're in a day and time when there weren't as many competitive golfers. If you think of the 156th player in the field against Byron Nelson, he was definitely a club pro. 100% he was a club pro and probably got a free pass into the tournament, didn't even have to qualify. So the field was a lot weaker back then. Now the top 10 that Byron Nelson played against were great. Mm-hmm. But once you got to the bottom of the field, those people had no chance to beat Byron Nelson. Interestingly enough, the person that beat him that year was Freddie Haas, an amateur who won that tournament that Byron Nelson finally lost. That's a bit of trivia most people don't know.
Yeah, nice little tidbit there.
Thank you.
So that was a good claim 35 years ago. It still holds true that Byron Nelson's 11 victories in a row will never be forgotten, and you stand by that today, too.
I do.
Okay, let's move on to number 2. Byron Nelson's 18 victories in one season. This is another record that is simply unreal. Granted, the competition wasn't as stiff or deep as in those days as today, but Nelson still had to have his game in prime form week after week to win that often.
Yeah, I don't think 18 will happen. Tiger Woods and VJ have won 10. In the last 20 years, they've been able to have a year where they've done it. But we're talking 18 victories. It just can't happen. So this is one of those records that will have an asterisk. There just weren't as many good players in those days. But still, he did it. He won 18 times that year. I think they can. I have no problem with this still remaining in a top 10 list.
Yeah. I mean, how many tournaments do the guys play? Anywhere from 20 to 30 these days?
20 to 30.
30 is a lot to win a year.
A lot.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you there. And luckily for you, you're 35 years ago, you made this prediction, and it still holds true. So you're 2 for 2. But here we go. Number 3.
Oh, boy.
Sam Snead, 82 PGA Tour victories. There is only one man alive today. Remember, you wrote this 35 years ago. Mm-hmm. Or that will ever live that can get to this one, and that would be Jack Nicklaus. With his 1986 Masters victory, he stands at 71, but with Jack just barely playing in his spare time and now over 47 years old, one can hardly expect him to cop 13 more titles.
Actually, 11. Yeah, 11. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
To 82.
Oh, yeah, a little bad math there.
There we go.
The next closest active player is Tom Watson, who has 31. Kathy Whitworth on the LPGA Tour has won 88 titles since 1959.
All right, before I respond to this one, Kathy Whitworth is a record I do not believe will be broken. That's just me.
Did she stand at 88?
She finished at 88. Okay. She's still at 88 to this day. I don't think a professional will win 88 times on a tour. I don't think it's going to happen. So I believe that one's safe. Tiger Woods has since, who, by the way, when this article was written, was 12 years of age. Tiger Woods has 82. When he won at Zozo, he tied Sam Snead at 82. And I believe that he will break the record. I think Tiger's going to win again. So I do think this record will be broken. It has now been tied. I think it will be broken because I think Tiger will do it. But I'll stand beside this one. Now that Tiger Woods will have gotten that record when he wins one more time, I don't think that one will be broken unless Tiger himself wins again after that.
Okay, so a lot of new claims here.
New claims.
Tiger will win again. I would love to see that. I hope that's true. And that Tiger's new record then will never be broken. So mark that 2022, and let's look at it 35 years from now.
I'll only be 96. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're 2 for 3. And then we go on to claim number 4. Jack Nicklaus is 17 years in a row in the top 4 on the money list. From 1962 as a rookie through 1978, Jack Nicklaus never fell below 4th in earnings. Watson did it from 1977 to 1982. Watson led the money list from 77 to 80, something not even Nicklaus accomplished, but that record seems somewhat more attainable.
Okay, I do believe somebody can win the money title 4 years in a row. I think that's very doable. You get on a good stretch and you start playing well. I think it's pretty improbable to think somebody would, for 17 consecutive years, not fall out of the top 4 on the money list. With all the competition there is nowadays, I don't think it can happen. Is this as untouchable as Byron Nelson's 11 and 18? No, it's not that untouchable. But it's a pretty difficult record. That's a pretty amazing one. Now, we're going to look at some other ones later that are pretty amazing, but this one's still pretty good.
Yeah, that's good. I agree. I would also say the Byron Nelson couple stats there early are more unattainable. But that's just ridiculous. 17 years in a row in the top 4. That's
longevity, if nothing else. A 17-year career is amazing in itself, but to do the top 4 in the money list every year, unthinkable.
Yeah, so great call there, 35 years later.
Thank you.
We're 3 for 4, but we're about to hit a rough patch here.
It's a rough patch.
Okay, number 5. Byron Nelson's 113 cuts in a row during the 1940s. Here's a good one. Nicklaus made the cut 105 in a row from 1970 to 1976. Hale Irwin went 86 in a row without feeling the axe from 1975 to 1978. The current streak is under 20.
Okay, and I would tell the listeners, Mikkel is reading from my actual article that I wrote. So that's what I just wrote, and I said that. I didn't think anybody would ever touch. If Nicklaus hadn't done it, I just didn't think it would be done. Again, Tiger was 12 years old when this was written. So that's my defense. But I will say this, Byron Nelson didn't have as many tournaments that actually had a cut. So some of those tournaments you just finished, you finished in the money or out of the money, but you got to play all 4 rounds. So that's a little bit misleading. Still an unbelievable stat that he didn't miss a cut. But Tiger Woods came along and made the cut in 142 consecutive tournaments. And his father passed away, and he missed the cut in the next event. The first cut he missed was the U.S. Open.
I didn't know that.
That's what happened. I mean, and to show you that his game was still incredible at the time, he set a British Open record the next month and won the British Open. So Tiger shouldn't have missed that cut, but he was obviously heartbroken from his father's passing. 142, I'm pretty solid right now in saying that's going to be a difficult one. Usually the current streak is at about 20 or so, and then you miss a cut. Too much competition again, a record that, and Tiger did this in the modern era, so that's what makes it even more impressive.
Yeah.
But I was wrong in 1987 on that one.
Good one. So we are 3 for 5. Here comes claim number 6 that you wrote 35 years ago. Sam Snead's 8 victories in the same event. Snead won the Greensboro Open 8 times between 1938 and 1965. Wow, that's a long stretch. Nicklaus has won 6 Masters titles, but we can't expect 2 more miracles like in 1986, although most of us would love to see it. Tom Watson's 5 British Opens are wonderful, but 3 more seems out of the question.
Okay. Gosh. I just didn't think anybody would win a single event 8 times, and I was sorely mistaken.
No.
Tiger Woods has won 2 events 8 times. So he's won the Bay Hill and he's won the Bridgestone 8 times. He's won 2 other events 7 times. So I'm going to throw Tiger's record will get in this top 10 eventually, because I think it's impossible to think that somebody could have 4 different tournaments that they'd won 8, 7, and 7 times. It's just unthinkable. So we're not going to make my new top 10 today, but trust me, when that top 10 does come around and is officially published, this one's a consideration. He took Sam Snead, and we forgot who Sam Snead was because of this. Unbelievable.
That is unbelievable. And then your comment here about Tom Watson's 5 British Opens are wonderful, but 3 more seems out of the question. Even I remember Tom Watson almost winning against Stuart Sink there. What year was that?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
And that is, you wrote this 22 years before 2009?
And so he was almost winning one 22 years later.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and honestly, if Watson's putting had held up, he might have won. Because in the mid-'90s, he was very competitive in 3 or 4 U.S. Opens in a row. He was competitive in the Masters a couple of times, in the PGA once. And then obviously into the 2000s was still competing. I mean, pretty amazing. But he didn't win. It's hard to win. I think the reason Nicklaus winning at 46 in a Masters is not the fact that he still had skill to win. It's the fact that his nerves. Because if you're playing at that high level for year after year after year and having pressure putts year after year after year, your nerves, they leave you.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Jack's nerves did not leave him that day in 86.
Yeah.
So
Tom Watson's nerves, that's one of the few major championship moments that really stand out to me from that early on in my life, is the approach shot he hit into 18 there in 2009, and it rolled just over the green. It was a great approach shot. He chipped it to about 5 feet, and talking about nerves, he took forever on that putt.
Yeah.
And hit a terrible putt, and then he lost in the playoff, didn't he? Was that how it worked
He did. I just think the golf gods were kind of confused that day. They didn't. I love Stuart Sink. He's a wonderful champion. But, I mean, to win at 59 would have been unthinkable and would make anybody's top 10 list of not just golf unbreakable records, but perhaps in any sport. How could you win a championship at 59? It's just crazy.
Crazy.
But anyway, he didn't do it. And so we didn't change that one.
Yeah, so Tiger did break that claim that you had there about Sam Snead's 8 victories in the same event. So we're at 3 for 6. We're batting 50%.
Not good.
We're bleeding here. Number 7, Bobby Locke's 16-stroke victory. 1948 Chicago Victory Open. This one is safe. In 1986, Doug Toole at Los Angeles and Greg Norman at Las Vegas, each won by 7 strokes. There are too many players shooting too many low scores for anyone to run away as Locke did.
Okay, so let me kind of work my way through this one. So I was just stating that basically the year before I wrote this, that 2 players had won tournaments by 7 shots, and we just thought it was amazing. It is amazing. To beat the field that they have then, or definitely now, that's hard to beat them by that many. Remember, 10 years after this was written, Tiger won the Masters by 12 shots. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm not going to say it's an unbreakable record, but it's pretty close at Augusta. That might be one of those unbreakable records at Augusta anyway. We'll talk about another thing Tiger did in the U.S. Open one time here a little bit later, but I think Bobby Locke's record is somewhat safe, but it is attainable. I think somebody could just go off in a tour event and figure it, it's maybe.
Yeah.
I could see it happening, but that is a pretty safe record.
So your prediction stands true. Nobody has broken the 16-stroke victory.
Right.
But you are going back a little bit on your statement here about this one is safe. So you're a little bit more on thin ice.
It's less safe than it was in 1987. I don't know why. I just think it is.
Okay.
Somebody could do it. Maybe not in a major, but in another tournament. Who knows?
But good claim. So we're 4 for 7. Mm-hmm. And we're headed off to number 8, the number 8 claim. Walter Hagen's 4 consecutive PGA titles. Hagen won the PGA held at match play in those days from 1924 to 1927. In the major championship, only 4 players have successfully defended their title since 1960, much less win 4 straight. Sir Walter can rest easy.
Okay. Brooks Koepka recently won 2 U.S. Opens in a row. Tiger won a couple of, I think, PGAs in a row. Before him, Nick Faldo won a couple of Masters in a row. It's pretty rare. You don't repeat in a major very often. It doesn't happen very often. But to do it 4 times, it's kind of unthinkable. Now, it was a specialty because it was match play. And Walter was great at match play because he was a gamesman. He could get in your head, and he did a great job of getting in your head. And so maybe that helped him win at match play a little bit more. But it's still 4 majors, the same major 4 years in a row. Mm-hmm. Pretty incredible.
So Sir Walter can rest easy. Do you stand by that still?
I do. I don't think anybody is ever going to win the same major 4 years in a row.
Okay. And it does hold true. So we're at 5 for 8. Headed off to number 9. Mike Suchak's 257. 1955 Texas Open is 27 under par. Admittedly, scoring records are vulnerable at best, but the courses on the PGA Tour aren't getting any easier, even though the players seem to be getting better and more plentiful. With Dean Beeman's plan to build more TPC courses, the days of shooting 27 under par may be over for good.
Well, I'm a little bit embarrassed here because I think that record's been broken 6 or 7 times already. So scoring records are vulnerable. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, it took a long, long time for somebody to shoot a 63 in a major. And now there's 40 of them or something. It's a large number of 63s have been shot in majors and even one 62. So it's like we've gotten to, I think I made a mistake here big time in 1987. Scoring records are vulnerable because of the talent, because of technology, because of the condition of golf courses. All of that would lead to scoring lower is just, it's going to happen. So I will tell you that I will put no more scoring records, just pure score, in any of my top 10 lists.
Yeah, it's so condition-based.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that will always protect a golf course is thick rough. But beyond that, let's say you have mediocre rough. I mean, you can get rain one night and the toughest golf course will turn into, dart throwing contest for the best players in the world.
Exactly. So I was 27. What did I know? You're 28. You're 1 year further down than I was in 1987. So you have that knowledge.
So yeah, I'm much the wiser. Would stay away from scoring records.
Staying away from scoring records.
So that one was broken. So we're moving on to number 10.
How many have I gotten wrong?
You have 4 wrong. So you're 5 for 9.
5 for 9.
And this is the last claim, number 10. Jack Nicklaus's 20 major titles. That's 18 professional titles. Mm-hmm. This record is perhaps the most amazing of all, and yet it will be in jeopardy when the Golden Bear tees it up in the British Open next week at Muirfield, one of his favorite courses and the site of his first British Open victory some 21 years ago. Among active players, Tom Watson has 8 majors.
Okay, let me apologize first for calling it the British Open. At 27, I wasn't aware it was really the Open Championship. That's pretty bad for a golf historian, so I want to set the record straight right there. Are you good with that?
Good with that.
Okay, it is the Open Championship. I still believe, since I don't think Tiger will get there, I believe if Tiger hadn't had all the injuries, if certain things hadn't happened, I think Tiger probably would have gotten there, because I'm going to make this statement. I've made it personally. I've never made it on a podcast, never made it publicly. I'm the biggest Ben Hogan fan maybe in the world, possibly the biggest Jack Nicklaus fan in the world. So putting them together, I bridged 2 generations of the greatest players of all times. And I contend that Hogan at his best and Nicklaus at his best, wrapped together into one human, is not quite what Tiger was for about a 12-year period. Wow. And I know that's silly. It's crazy. And all the traditionalists that are my age and older are cussing my name right now because they think that's blasphemy. But it's not. If you look at what I'm getting ready to present to you here in just a little while, it's unthinkable that in the modern day, against this competition, that Tiger could accomplish the things he has. He won't get to 18 professional majors, and I don't think anyone will. It's simply going to not be touched. And I think if somebody gets to 10 again, I would be shocked if somebody gets to 10. That's how. So 8 more after that? No. This record will eventually be maybe the most unattainable in all of professional golf. Mm. It's amazing. And there's some other things attached to that are pretty amazing too. So that one, pretty easy to say.
Yeah, and that one holds true, obviously. So you went 6 for 10 35 years ago. I mean, I'll give you a passing grade, but I'll give you about a C+. I mean, it's pretty good, some of it, but you did make some mistakes. I mean, the scoring record stuff.
That's stupid.
That's a silly mistake.
Silly mistake.
So with these 10 claims, Coach, and 6 of them still hold true, if you had to bet your house on one of them holding true 35 years from now, which one would it be of these 6 claims?
I would have said one of Byron Nelson's 2 records, but I'm not going to anymore. I think those are actually doable compared to 18 majors. The best players in the game today, I mean, Rory McIlroy has won 4 majors. He hasn't won one in 8 years. As great as he's played, he hasn't won one in 8 years. Brooks Koepka's won 4, and we just think he's the greatest thing that's ever lived. I mean, these are hard to win. These are not easy. Dustin Johnson has won every year he's played on the PGA Tour. Every single year. He's only got 2 major titles. I mean, just go down the list. It's very difficult to win. So to get to 18 would be unfathomable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So let's put something
but we're in NCAA, so we don't bet on it. Just putting that disclaimer
let's put that
out
there, please. We do not bet on it.
All right. On you go.
Okay. Well, Mikkel, I appreciate you taking me down memory lane. I can't believe that article still exists someplace because I don't know. I guess when you're a journalist, and it says I was a golf columnist, right? Mm-hmm. You're a journalist, you put that thing out there, it's out there forever. I can't hide from this. This is what I believe, right? Okay.
Yeah. C+.
C+. Okay, thank you for the grade. All right, so I'm not going to say my new top 10 today. I'm not going to do that. But I am going to give a bunch of statistics that have come since then, or some that I didn't include on this list originally that had already happened, that I think deserve mention. And then we'll come in, a few months down the line once I've done some studying, maybe sometime this summer, I'll come up with, okay, this is the definitive top 10 list. When I'm 100 years old, all 10 of these are going to be alive and well. But we're not ready for that list yet. I'm going to give the considerations today. Are you ready for that?
Ready. Give it to us.
All right. These are in no particular order, but I think are all deserving of consideration for a top 10 list. And I'm not saying that the top 10 I have, those 6 that survived or whatever couldn't find their way into that list, they might.
Sure.
Maybe we'll extend the list to 15, maybe 20, who knows. But for a top 10, these that I'm getting ready to give you do deserve mention. And we've already got, and some of those 4 that I missed on may end up staying in the top 10 because of the new guy that broke it.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Underrated, unbelievable, unprecedented is Tiger Woods winning 3 U.S. Juniors and 3 U.S. Amateurs in a row. Now, some are going to criticize me for putting that stat. He didn't beat the best players in the world. He beat the best juniors, and then he beat the best amateurs. But I'm going to tell you, to have won 36 matches in a row, 18 in 3 U.S. Juniors and 18 in 3 U.S. Amateurs, is unfathomable. For one, you can't play good 18 matches in a row. You can't play your best. And you're going to run into a buzzsaw at some point in those matches. But what's interestingly enough is Tiger was down in every single one of these matches at some point, basically. Yeah. Well, he was down in every final, that's for sure. He was down in every final, and by a lot in some of them. What do you think about that record? I mean, it's like underrated, but unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. So I did the math on this one. If we assume that Tiger's chance of winning each of these matches would be 75%,
okay,
would that be fair?
Fair.
I know some matches is higher, some matches is lower, but let's just assume 75% chance to win the match when it tees it up. And to win 36 matches in a row, the math works out to that being a 0.003% chance of winning 36 matches in a row, even with a 75% advantage standing on the
even
first
though he's
tee.
the best player in every one of those events, every one of those matches.
Yes.
Wow.
And
that's not a very good chance.
So, yeah, that one is unbelievable. It's probably not spoken about very much, but that one is
It's not
unreal.
spoken about because he's not beating the best players in the world. He's just beating the best players of that particular arena that he was in, but still unbelievable. All right, Tiger's 4 consecutive major titles. Now, this one, agreeably, it could be gotten, but it's never happened. And Ben Hogan, the best of his generation, won 3 in 1 year. And Nicklaus never won 3, thanks to, speaking of Muirfield again, 1972, Lee Trevino just doing amazing things to keep. He always said, I don't want to be known as the 1972 Open champion. I want to be known as the guy who kept Jack from winning the Grand Slam. Because Jack was going to win the Grand Slam that year. But to win 4 in a row, and people call it the Tiger Slam, I still think it's the Grand Slam. That's blasphemy, according to traditionalists. But he had all 4 trophies on his mantle at the same time. And no one else had those trophies on their mantle. So 4 in a row, I mean, to me, it's a slam of sorts that I don't think will ever happen again. Do you think it'll happen again?
Probably not. But I would tend to think that one is on a little bit thinner ice than the 36 matches in a row.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if a guy gets going, he could win 4 majors in a row before you could win 36 matches.
But it's still, I don't think it will happen still.
No, I don't either. Okay, Tiger, 683 weeks at world number 1. Whew. Come on. That's just crazy. Don't you think? I mean, 683 weeks? If he hadn't had injuries, I think it would be closer to 1,000 weeks. But anyway, he had 683 weeks. Talk to me about that one.
Well, I mean, that's so many years. Even to avoid injury or anything that's out of your control for that long is hard to do. So, yeah.
I mean, you could be playing, maybe you don't play a heavy schedule and you don't play great in the 2 or 3 tournaments you do play in, and some other guy plays in 6 tournaments in a row and wins 3 of them.
Yep.
He flips the number 1. There was some time when Tiger could have gone a year without even playing in an event and still remain number 1. That's how far ahead he was. Just
crazy.
Talk about that one being pretty safe.
Yeah.
All right. This is one that's not talked about very often. I'm thankful that somebody brought it to my attention. So every day on the PGA Tour, every single round, they have an average for the day. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Tiger Woods he beat the average of the day 89 consecutive rounds. He did not lose to the average that was that day. I mean, this is unthinkable.
It is.
How could this happen? You've got to have one day where you're not quite as good and you just don't quite get to the average of the field that day. We're talking about the best players in the world have an average every day on the PGA Tour.
Yep.
89 rounds in a row.
That one is the best one so far of those, in my opinion. 89, I mean, you do the math on that one. I don't know what his chances of beating the field every day is. Maybe it's in the 80s somewhere, but I promise you that's going to work out to less than those 36 matches he won in a row.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And honestly, it's a record nobody even thought about. I don't know what Nicklaus did. I don't know what Ben Hogan did because we don't have all those stats completely.
Because the thing is, like, if you would have talked about tournaments where he beat the field in a row, at least he would have had 72 holes to do it. So you kind of weighed out some of the variance of a golf round. But a golf round is only 18 holes. Mm-hmm. You have a couple mishaps, like a couple bad bounces, one bad swing, and all of a sudden you're not beating the field average.
What if you had food poisoning the night before, but you decided to play?
Yeah. I mean, it's so quick to not beat the field average in one single golf round.
One swing.
Yeah, so 89 rounds, unreal.
It's crazy. So Tiger winning a major by 15 shots. Now, I realize that there has been a major won by more than 15 shots 100 years ago. But in the modern day, if you take a modern day record, he won the U.S. Open in 2000 by 15 shots. I'm just afraid that you're not going to win another major by 15 shots. I don't know how you would do it. He was so much better than the rest of the world at the time. And by the way, he had 2 double bogeys that week. And he won by 15 shots. I don't know. And I know I'm saying the same thing over and over and over, but it's like, how do you win a major by 15? Doable. I say more doable than the 89 rounds in a row beating the field average, more doable than winning 3 straight U.S. juniors and 3 straight U.S. amateurs in a row, but still kind of unthinkable.
Doable becomes very relative at this point, though.
I think it's a very relative term.
So, but yeah, it's Tiger. It's unreal.
Okay. We got some more Tigers here. I'm going to throw in a little Phil and Jack and Ben Hogan and even a Lydia Ko. All right, so Tiger successfully defending his title on the PGA Tour 24 different times. So 24 different times, he was the defending champion, and he won again. I don't know how you quantify this record or how you compare it to the others, but nonetheless, it's kind of an amazing stat, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Okay, all right.
I mean, broken record here. Unbelievable.
Okay. All right, these two right here I think are doable, but they're just mind-boggling. Tiger, 11 Player of the Year awards. 11 times he was the PGA Player of the Year. And 10 times he won the money title. Mm-hmm. Okay, you remember we talked about Jack Nicklaus's money title, 17 years in a row in the top 4. Well, think about being the top leading money winner 10 times. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. That's a lot of years of being the number 1 player on the tour and a lot of years of being the Player of the Year. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you're going to talk about that record, but...
Yeah, I mean, if you're the best player in the world, or at least this one gives you a full season to kind of wait out the variance again, or like have your wins to where you get to the top of the money list. But still, like, let's say you're in your prime 20 years, that would be a very long prime time to be in your career. To win the money list 10 times is still probably unattainable.
And Tiger basically did that from 1997 to 2008, and then he didn't play in 9 much, played a little bit, but he didn't play in 2008, the end of 2008. But the point is, it got a little sporadic toward the end, but he was the money leader in 2013.
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah, that's right.
But anyway, so there was 10 times he did that. 54-hole leads, he was 14-1. Couple things. How many people are going to have 15 54-hole leads? Okay.
Did he only have 15 54-hole leads with 80-some wins?
Majors.
Okay,
majors.
right.
Pardon me.
Right.
In majors.
Yeah.
Had 15 54-hole leads, and he only lost to Wai Yang. And Wai Yang,
that's right.
Don't know where he's shooting 75 right now, but he's someplace doing that right now. And he beat Tiger that day as Hazeltine. Crazy. I mean, first of all, I guess you just do the percentage. I'm not a math person, but if you do the percentage, it's still hard to get to a percentage like that.
Yeah, that's in the 90s.
It's in the 90s, so if you have 2 54-hole leads and you miss on one of them, that's 50% already. So it's very difficult to get in the 90s regardless of the number. Pretty good. And his overall percentage of tour events or just actual championship or tour titles is 93%
of
with a
54-hole lead.
And you think about it, I should have done more research before this call, this podcast, but we know that the 54-hole lead on the PGA Tour winning the next day is very low.
Yeah.
It's
nowhere near the 90s for sure.
Oh, my goodness, not even close. All right, this next one I'm kind of intrigued by because I also think it's an underrated one, but 18 WGC titles. The next one is a guy I said who's won every year he's been a professional, every single year, and he's won 2 major championships. He's won a FedEx Cup. He's an amazing player. Dustin Johnson has won 6. And we think of Dustin Johnson as this godlike figure. Mm-hmm. Tiger won 3 times that many. He won 18 WGCs. Come on.
Crazy.
I mean, you're just a broken record here. Or you just...
Yeah. Helps on the money list, too.
It does help on the money list. That's pretty amazing. 18 of those. Unusual record, not talked about very much, but Tiger Woods in 4 consecutive majors, he was 12 under par or better in 4 consecutive majors. Now, some people would say, oh, well, that's a scoring record. You're not supposed to talk about scoring records. So I'm probably not going to put this one in my top 10.
This is because I gave you a little bit of flack for it before recording this one.
Truly. But how many guys in a U.S. Open?
Yeah.
So if you got 4 in a row, one of them has to be a U.S. Open. How many times has 12 under been attained in the U.S. Open? Not very many. So it's like that's rare to begin with. And then an Open Championship, just get a little wind and rain. I mean,
sure.
That's a pretty neat stat.
It is a great stat, but I could see that being broken if the stars align because
totally
U.S. Open is going to be your biggest Achilles heel on that one because of the USGA. But Augusta, it's doable even with a little bit of conditions. And then PGA has been set up easy a couple times. I remember that year with Jason Day and
18 and 19.
Yeah, and Jordan Spieth, wasn't it? And then the Open, if you don't get any wind, I mean, it doesn't matter which course you play there, they're going to be scoreable. So U.S. Open will be your biggest hurdle. It probably won't happen, but I mean, if the stars align, I could see it.
Yeah, I will make a prediction. This won't make my top 10 eventually because it is a scoring record, and I think the players are getting better. But I just thought that was interesting that he did that 4 times in a row. Very difficult to do. Ben Hogan. Finally got to Ben Hogan.
Oh, nice.
These 2 stats are really, really cool. And I realize it's an old stat, but 2 things. He played in 292 sanctioned PGA Tour events. 292. He was in the top 10 82% of the time with 241 top 10s out of 292. Mm-hmm. Okay, that boggles my mind just a little bit thinking about it. The top 3 finishes is actually a little crazier. 47% of the time, almost half of the time, he was in the top 3, 139 of 292. So 139 times out of 292, he was in the top 3 in an event. Okay.
Wild.
There's one of the William Ben Hogan.
Finally, you got to him.
I got to Ben
Those
Hogan.
will be tough to compare to Tiger because it's just such a different era. I mean, obviously, that's unbelievable. Half of your times you peg it up, you're in the top 3.
Well, remember,
but it's just different.
I qualified all of this at the beginning by saying the 156th player in Ben Hogan's career was a club pro. He was no doubt a club pro. That's just local club pro that got in the tournament.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not discounting what Hogan accomplished. He's one of my favorite players that's ever lived. But the deepness of the fields, they were so shallow compared to today that a record like this that Hogan has, I think it's safe to say, and Byron Nelson's 2 that we talked about earlier, safe to say they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Not going to be broken. I don't know if that'll find my top 10, but anyway. Okay, I've got one that I'm going to get a lot of flack for, but it's Phil Mickelson winning a major championship at 50. Okay, now, in 1968, Julius Boros won the PGA Championship at 48 years of age. I took up the game the next year and became immediately a golf historian. So that was a record from my youth that lasted 53 years. 53 years that record stood. I guess you could go to Bob Beeman's long jump record in the 1968 Olympics. It didn't get broken for 40 years. Or you could go to Jim Ryan's mile record that he set in 1966 for under 18 years of age. Wasn't broken until 2009 by a good friend of mine, Jeremy Fernandez, who was at Oklahoma State. He broke the under 19 record. But it's like those records that last that long, they're pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't think 50 years of age is anything to stick your nose up at. That's pretty amazing because of the nerves and because of the speed of the greens. It's like that's hard to do. What do you think about Tigers? I don't know if it'll find Phil. I don't know if it'll find my top 10, but it's a pretty good record.
You know, just thinking about it, I think that one will be broken because I think the technology of golf clubs and golf balls and just, you know, statistics and information, everything, like the importance of distance is so much more out there for players aging, such as Tiger and those people around his age that are approaching 50, that I think people go to different measures to keep up with, distance and other scoring metrics that are the most important in majors. So I think you'll see a little bit less of an age difference in majors.
I would agree. If a guy stays healthy and he stays training and he eats well and does all those things, but I really think Phil doing it at the PGA was an anomaly, because I think it's more likely to happen at Augusta, where even though the greens are fast and the nerves, but the golf course, and you've played the golf course for 30 years, so it's like,
I could see it happen at Augusta, because you just see some old guy. It's just something about that place where local course knowledge, because it's the only major championship that's played at the same course year in, year out, year in, year out.
That's why I'm agreeing with you right there.
Is where I could see some guys maybe break that.
Yeah, I mean, Bernard Longer had a chance to win in his 50s. Jack Nicklaus finished 6th in 1998, the only time he beat Tiger at Augusta. When Tiger was a professional, finished 6th. Yeah. Freddie Couples got real competitive in his 50s. So I think it's going to happen at Augusta. I just threw out Phil's 50 because the record had stood for 53 years. Jack Nicklaus competing in 153 consecutive major championships. I think we can just go ahead and say, now I realized later in years he was getting exemptions and he really didn't earn, it was on a career thing, but he did tee it up in 153 in a row. I don't think this will happen again.
Yeah, I agree with you there. How many years in a row is that?
A lot, 38 and some. It's a lot. It was from 1961 or 2, where they started the streak there, through at least 2000.
I would bet my house on that one.
Yeah.
But we're NCAA. We don't bet on it.
We don't bet on it.
Yep.
All right, so Jack Nicklaus. All right, so this one I think is doable, but I'm going to throw it out there because the two greatest players of all times actually tied this record, and that is 39 consecutive majors making the cut. Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods both made it, and Tiger Woods would have this record. His father passed away, and I know it affected that 2006 U.S. Open run. He was playing the best golf of anybody in the world. But they both had 39 cuts in a major in a row. I think this one's gettable.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, do I think it's going to happen in the near future? Absolutely not. But just making the cut is different than winning or what we've been talking about in these other ones. So
that's 10 years. 10 years of majors.
10 years of making the cut. Yeah.
All right. So another major record here, and it's Jack. 13 straight top 10s. Now,
in majors.
It's. Some would argue that Ben Hogan kind of had this because you don't count the year he was in a hospital bed, and you don't count. But I mean, talking about playing in consecutive majors, not skipping one, not missing one. You played in 13 in a row. He made the cut, or he finished top 10 in 13 in a row. Pretty nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
that one's very tough.
That's a tough one, but I don't know if it makes a top 10, but it's pretty good. All right, so let's get back to Jack. We said that the 18 professional majors that was on my original list in 1987, we said it's still safe today. I feel like it is. But let's talk about something we add to that, an addendum. 3 little tidbits you add to that I think are ungettable. Okay? His 18 professional wins in major championships. 19 times runner-up. I'm going to throw a little caveat to that 19 runner-up. 9 third places for a total of 46 top 3s. In his first 100 majors, he had 70 top 10s. So those little 3 records right there, I'm just going, like, how do you do this? But let's say somebody gets 19 runner-ups in majors. Jack never bogeyed the last hole to lose by 1 in a major. None of those 19s did he choke the last hole to lose a major. Now, he made some late bogeys in some majors. 1975 at Medina at the U.S. Open. He probably could have won that. He didn't. He made a couple bogeys late in the round. But he didn't choke on the last hole to lose those majors. He had 19 runner-ups. Somebody just beat him. That's all.
37 top 2s is almost 10 straight years. And if your career is 20 years in your prime, that would be unbelievable in itself. You'd have to bet 50% being top 2. That one will never happen.
Okay. So we're pretty comfortable. Now, the reason I like this stat, we've said some of those other records exist because the field wasn't deep. Okay, but when you're talking about finishing top 2, You're not talking about the depth of the field. You're talking about the guys who are trying to win the event, not the 156th guy. So that makes this record even better because Jack was still playing against great players. Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Billy Casper, Tom Weiskopf, Johnny Miller, Tom Watson, Lee Trevino. Go through it. They had still had great players at the top. So to finish first or second in that many is just unthinkable. And he would lament the fact that of those 19 runner-ups, several of them, somebody just beat him. It's crazy. Yep. But I hate to be Bruce Crampton, whose 4 runner-ups in major championships all came to Jack Nicklaus. Ouch. Okay. Lydia Ko. She won 13 times before the age of 19. Okay. On a professional tour.
Yeah.
Come on, Mikkel. Talk to me here.
Yeah, when I was 19, what was I even doing?
I think you were cross-country skiing and begging me to come to Oklahoma State, and I said no.
It was different, Coach. You were begging me to come to Oklahoma State. Then I started at Baylor, and you followed me a few years ago.
That's the way you're working.
But 13 wins, I don't know how that could ever be broken in golf. You see it in some other sports that are physical in a different way, such as like gymnastics. You can see it in swimming sometimes. Golf is a technical sport, but I can't see that one ever be broken again.
Yeah, Liddy, that was pretty amazing. I've already mentioned this one earlier, but Kathy Whitworth's 88 professional wins on a tour.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys claim a lot more tournaments, like Gary Player won in the hundreds because he played everywhere in the world in smaller tours or whatever. But so I don't know how you're going to quantify Gary Player's victories, but I would say she won on the LPGA Tour 88 times. And, think about that for a second. That's kind of unthinkable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what would happen if Annika would have continued to play or Lorena wouldn't have retired at such a young age. Maybe if Lydia could have kept up that, but the point is 88's a lot.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so I've got one more, and then we're going to kind of figure out how to wrap this up. I think this one's gettable, but it's kind of still amazing. At Augusta, Tiger won by 12 shots over Tom Kite. Most people don't remember Tom Kite was the runner-up in 1997, but he won by 12 shots at Augusta. It's crazy. I know that Jack won one year by 8, and there have been some pretty big victories, but that was absolutely stunning.
It's crazy, but it's a scoring record.
I know.
I'm just telling you. Okay, so those are amazing golf stats. I have, being a European, I do have the craziest sporting stat that I know. This is kind of off topic because it's not golf, but...
this is a golf podcast, correct?
It is,
okay.
But I have to put this in perspective a little bit because I have to bring this up on this podcast. In 2016, there's a team called Leicester City that won the Premier League. And the Premier League is the top soccer league in England. And it's different to American sports because the top clubs, there's no salary cap, there's no, draft of players.
It's by far the best teams.
It's free trade. Mm-hmm. So the top clubs are so heavy and dominant because they have the most money, all this stuff. That's why it's so unlikely for a club like Leicester City to win, first of all, games against these teams, but then to win the league, which is over 40 games. So their odds at the start of the season to win the 2016 Premier League, when they just made it up from the division below, was 1 to 5,000, and it happened. That means if you put $20 on it, what is that, 100,000?
We don't gamble in NCAA.
No, we're NCAA, so we don't. But I'm just saying, it's 1 to 5,000. In comparison, the Miracle on Ice, U.S. versus Soviet, when was that? 1980. Was 1 to 300. Okay? So it describes having 40 games where you have to win the league. 1 to 5,000. That one game, the U.S. Soviet, which has been made into several movies and whatever, 1 to 300. Another final comparison is for these teams to win the college football playoff this year, to win at, that Monday, was 1 to 2,000. That's Colorado, Illinois, or Indiana. Was 1 to 2,000 to win the college football playoff. So over twice as unlikely as that was Leicester City winning the Premier League in 2016. So non-golf stat, but an incredible event that happened.
That's unbelievable. I guess in my world, being a golf historian, I would kind of make a comparison to Jack Fleck beating Ben Hogan in 1955 at Olympic. Most people don't know this, but Jack Fleck, who was from Iowa, was driving through Fort Worth on his way to the Olympic Club, stopped by the Hogan factory, got 2 or 3 wedges from Mr. Hogan, and he went out and beat Ben Hogan with those wedges. He actually beat him with a putter that last round. But Jack Fleck was a club professional who did yoga and thought he was going to beat Ben Hogan, and he did.
1 round?
Well, it was 4 rounds, and then beat him in a playoff.
Okay. Well, anyways, let me ask you some quick hit, like a speed round, just at the end here.
Got it.
I don't have all these prepared, but we're gonna try and stump you. If you ever run into Coach McGraw and you're just bored or whatever, play a little golf trivia with him. It's fascinating. Okay, I have not prepared you for these.
Nope.
First one, that 86 Masters. What was Jack Nicklaus wearing in the last round of that 86 Masters?
He was wearing, quite frankly, the ugliest pair of slacks that kind of had plaid and stripes and different stuff going on, kind of green and red and yellow, not good, and a gold shirt. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm going to take your word for it. Google it, folks. Next one. Who was he playing with that round, Jack Nicklaus?
Playing with Sandy Lyle, who, interestingly enough, hit it in the fairway bunker on 18, did not reach the green with his approach. 2 years later, 1988, he hit it in that same fairway bunker and made birdie from there to win.
Okay. Next question. Where were you when you were watching this round?
I was in a hotel room in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri, playing in a mini tour event. And my roommate, Mark Chitwood, who was from Stillwater, Oklahoma, and we decided not to play our practice round. This is how committed we were to our mini tour event. We went out and walked the course real quick early in the morning and literally got into the hotel room, and they turned on the coverage, and Nicklaus made the birdie putt on 9. And we screamed and yelled and cried and hugged and whatever for 3 hours as that championship was being played. And it was, I'll never forget, with Mark Chitwood watching the 86 Masters.
Nice.
But I didn't play I made the cut that week, but I did not play well.
What did you shoot that week?
72, 72, 74.
Okay. 2 over par. That's not very good in professional golf. But
no, but even par made the cut. That was mini tour golf in the 1986. Give me a break.
God, I haven't stumped you yet. Okay, easy question. Favorite Masters?
Favorite Masters would be the 1986 Masters.
Okay, if you cannot choose the 86 Masters.
75 Masters. Jack Nicklaus beat Johnny Miller and Tom Weiskopf. Unbelievable what Johnny Miller did on the weekend. It was shocking. And Tom Weiskopf was truly the greatest player who only won one major that's ever lived.
Last question. Who was the low am that year, 1975 Masters?
1975 Masters. I think it'd be pretty smart to say Gary Koch or Jay Haas or Curtis Strange. I've just got to go with one of those. Who won? Who was it?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
I'll have you stumped on this one.
I think you might have me stumped on that one, but I mean, it's obvious those are 3 guys that would make sense at the time.
Okay. Well, we'll end on that. Stomping Coach McGraw is a rare feat, so we'll end the podcast on that. Thanks for being a nerd for a little bit less than an hour or so. If you guys like this, we might make a new top 10 bold claims here.
Well, I am going to come back this summer once I've studied a little bit and we've got the golf season behind us and I've done a little studying. I want to come up with a top 10 that I think is completely unattainable, untouchable, that when I'm 95 years old in a nursing home, you can bring the recording to me and we'll go over it and I'll still be batting 1,000.
And bat 10 for 10.
10 for 10 on that one.
All right, so that's coming up soon. But anyways, thanks for listening to this edition, and we'll be back next week.